Right now on Morning News Now, hanging in the balance. Former President Donald Trump's election interference case now on its way to the Supreme Court. The justices will hear arguments about his claim of presidential immunity. The timeline could impact whether the case even goes to trial before the November election. Plus, the campaign trail leading both former President Trump and President Biden to the southern border. More on their dueling visits to address the growing migrant crisis. Also this morning, shutdown averted. Lawmakers set to vote after reaching a deal to keep the government running. Plus a shakeup in the Senate as Mitch McConnell announces he's stepping down.
To serve Kentucky in the Senate has been the honor of my life. It's time for the next generation of leadership.
We're going to bring you the latest from the Capitol. Also, high risk, startling new findings about a possible link between marijuana use and your health. And history restored. We're going to take you to Pittsburgh, where the home of America's first black opera company is now getting a new life. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We begin this morning with that decision by the Supreme Court. The justices will hear arguments about whether former President Donald Trump can claim presidential immunity from federal election interference charges. Now, the court is going to begin hearing oral arguments the week of April 22nd. It's unclear when the justices will actually make their final ruling in the case. In the meantime, no trial can take place. So because of that timeline, there is a very real possibility Trump could avoid facing any trial for election interference allegations before this November's election. Prosecutors in the case say that Trump conspired to obstruct Congress and overturn legitimate election results. The former president has denied any wrongdoing in the case. In a lengthy Truth Social post, he doubled down on his innocence, saying, quote, all presidents must have complete and total presidential immunity, or the authority and decisiveness of a president of the United States will be stripped and gone forever. We have NBC News senior national politics reporter John Allen standing by to help us break down what this means for the election. But first, let's bring in NBC News justice reporter Ryan Riley and NBC News legal analyst Kristen Gibbons-Fedden for more on the Supreme Court's decision to actually hear this case. So, Ryan, let's start with you. Remind us what's at stake here and how did even reviewing this claim of presidential immunity make it all the way to the nation's highest court?
Yeah, I mean, really, timeline-wise, the question is now whether this case gets to trial. This is a big win for Donald Trump because really it's just all been about that timeline for him. Remember, if you look at the big picture here, his lawyers think he's going to be convicted in D.C. They don't think he can get a fair trial in D.C., and that's one of their main arguments here. They're also arguing essentially for two of the charges to be dropped because they don't believe that the proper focus of those charges, and this is the way that these charges were intended to be used in terms of the obstruction of justice charges that are being used against hundreds of January 6 rioters as well. But big picture, this is a really big win for Donald Trump because it raises the possibility that despite, according to the government, having conspired to overturn the results of a legitimate election and disenfranchise millions of American voters, he may not face legal consequences for that before we get to November. What happened here essentially is that Judge Chutkan has said overall that she would give 7 months for Donald Trump to prepare. Now, originally, this trial was set to get off very quickly. It was set to get off very shortly thereafter. March, in fact, next week is when this trial was originally set to begin. Because of this appeal, it really delayed this over a lengthy period of time. There are now 88 days left in this preparation window. So when the Supreme Court, or if the Supreme Court sort of gives the go-ahead for this trial to proceed, which now could come, months from now, it could come in May or June, that's when that timeline would begin, according to Chutkan's previous ruling. So then the 88 days start. So what that means is that ultimately this trial would then not be able to begin until perhaps late August, perhaps early September, and that's very quickly getting into that window where it would just overlap with the election, and the trial would not be over, and the verdict would not be out before November.
Kristen, what are some of the arguments that the justices are probably going to hear from both sides?
Well, I think we can expect to hear that fundamental debate on presidential powers. So Trump's defense is going to argue that Judge Chutkan and the D.C. Circuit Court were actually wrong or erred when they recognized total immunity for his official acts as president. And he's going to probably frame this as that it is essential for the separation of powers and to prevent partisan exploitation of the criminal justice system. He's going to argue that without that immunity, any presidential decision could be criminally prosecuted by a subsequent administration, which really hinders presidential functions. So Trump's team's probably also going to state, as Ryan kind of was alluded to, that any months-long trial, particularly if it's during the election season, is going to severely disrupt his campaign efforts and infringe on American voters' right to really hear his message. And I think that he's also arguing that that implicates the First Amendment. But countering that, SCOTUS is also going to hear from Special Counsel Smith, and he's going to argue that Trump's broad claim of immunity, if it's accepted, would actually be extremely dangerous because it would undermine the principles of justice, really democracy, and the rule of law, because it really would argue that no president, they're going to argue that no president really should be immune from prosecution for actions that threaten the democratic process itself. And more importantly, that no man, including the president, really should be above the law.
So, Kristen, I mean, the lower courts unanimously rejected Trump's claims when it comes to the issue of presidential immunity. There are a lot of legal analysts who thought this ruling was really narrowly written. The high court would probably leave it alone. Are you surprised the justices are taking this case?
I'm not surprised given the makeup of our court. You know, the lower court decisions, they do critically frame the debate on the presidential powers. But it's really crucial to remember that the Supreme Court's not really bound by these rulings. Instead, they're really bound or guided by their own precedent. So when you look at, you know, you're asking me, am I surprised? When you look at the wake of decisions like Roe, there's that growing scrutiny over how steadfastly the court is really going to adhere to any of its past rulings. So I'm not surprised that they took this up. This is an impactful ruling. It's an impactful political ruling. And it's going to be the most impactful, I think, political ruling since the Bush v. Gore. And that was the ruling that really decided the election. So right now, all eyes are going to be on how they navigate their precedents in shaping the contours of presidential power and the rule of law.
All right, Ryan Riley, Kristen Gibbons-Fedden, thank you both so much. Let's bring in NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen for more on the political impact here. John, good morning. So from former President Trump's perspective, how big of a win is this for him?
I mean, it couldn't be a bigger win. The biggest challenge to his election so far, or one of the biggest challenges to his election so far, has been the prospect that he would have a speedy trial, as defendants are usually entitled to in this country, and that he would be convicted of a crime. Now what you've got, as Ryan laid out, was a timeline that makes it certainly impossible for all of this to be decided before the Republican convention, start to get into a fall timeline. And then at that point, the Republican Party wouldn't have, perhaps a viable candidate if he was convicted of a crime. So I think there'd be a lot of the country that would look at that as completely unfair, even if they accepted a jury verdict against Trump. We're getting to the point where the Supreme Court has, given Trump basically a free pass on these charges effectively, because the likelihood that he could have a trial and be convicted before an election seems very minimal at this point. If he gets elected, he, of course, has the ability to pardon himself. In fact, the Justice Department has guidance that says you can't prosecute a sitting president. So the Justice Department might withdraw.
Yeah, let's talk about, I guess, first the GOP nomination process. I mean, there had been a chance this trial for the case could happen before Election Day. That's looking less likely. So how does that now change the campaigns for both Trump and opponent Nikki Haley? I mean, if one of her selling points is that she's the candidate free of legal problems, well, now if she doesn't do well on Super Tuesday, could she have to bow out of the race?
She only has to bow out of the race when she doesn't have money to fly her plane anymore, or to get on a plane, or to have hotel rooms. But the truth is, Joe, this race has been over for quite some time. I mean, without some sort of, external intervention in this race, Donald Trump is going to sew it up either Super Tuesday or perhaps mini Super Tuesday shortly following that. I think Nikki Haley, one of the reasons to hang around is to pick up delegates in case Trump became not viable through trial. Obviously, to your point, or to the point of the question, that possibility has been removed. Donald, the Republican convention will happen before any trial.
And John, real quickly, let's look at Capitol Hill, because there's actually talk that Democrats could do something pretty extreme if the Supreme Court rules in favor of Trump in this presidential immunity case. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats have tried to pull out all the stops and are looking at ways of shutting down, government processes or stripping the Supreme Court of funding, all kinds of measures that they might undertake to try to get in the way of it. It's hard to see that working, especially for a party that is talking about the rule of law. To suddenly turn on the Supreme Court. It makes their election arguments, sort of in conflict with each other.
All right, John Allen, good to have you with us this morning. Thank you as always. Right now, fire crews in Texas are battling as many as 23 wildfires that are raging across the state. At least one person has died, and so far more than 1 million acres have already burned, with dry conditions and high winds fanning the flames. One of the fires, called the Smokehouse Creek Fire north of Amarillo, has scorched 850,000 acres so far. That's bigger than the state of Rhode Island, making it the second largest wildfire in Texas history. Many residents in the path of the fire have been forced to evacuate. Several roadways are shut down. Governor Abbott issued a disaster declaration for 60 counties impacted by those fires. From fire to cold temps, let's get a check on your morning News Now weather. Meteorologist Angie Lastman tracking some of the cold weather on the way. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. We've got the chill in the air for sure across portions of the country that over the past couple of days have been dealing with some milder conditions. Not the case this morning, but don't worry, more warmth is on the way for the center of the country. Let's start for the Northeast, though. You're waking up to temperatures much chillier than what you probably went to bed with. We've got conditions ending up just into the upper 30s for Pittsburgh later today. 40s for New York, upper 40s for Washington, D.C., and those numbers are pretty close to where they should be for this time of year. But of course, a couple of spots a little cooler than normal and definitely cooler than what we were seeing yesterday and even the day before that. As we look a little farther to the west, notice across portions of the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Plains, we're going to be running way warm once again. We saw a bit of a dip in temperatures as yesterday's front worked through places like, say, Chicago, where we were just into the 20s for our high. And as we get into tomorrow, 50s it will be for folks in Chicago. We'll see some 60s across parts of Kansas, Missouri, St. Louis, and Kansas City ending up at 60 degrees. Even Minneapolis is going to be running way above normal with temperatures back into the upper 50s. And you can see it does spread into portions of the Northeast and New England area with upper 40s and upper 50s across that region. That's as we get into tomorrow. But look at this roller coaster ride that we once again are on when it comes to temperatures as we get into the weekend. We'll see places like Cincinnati get into the 60s on Saturday. We're into the 70s on Sunday, and we're not done warming up there. By Monday, we're dealing with mid-70s for Cincinnati, for Nashville, upper 70s for places like St. Louis. Even Chicago will be back to the 70s after dealing with the 20s for the high yesterday. So if you don't like the weather, just wait a couple of days, I suppose. That's the forecast up and down the East Coast, too. New York ends up into the upper 50s for Sunday and Monday, and we'll see this roller coaster ride continue. As we wrap up February, of course, today's the last day. We get into March tomorrow, but check out the record warmth that we saw coast to coast. 92% of the lower 48 saw warmer than normal temperatures for the month of February, and dozens of cities saw temperatures well above normal and recorded the warmest February ever on record. You've got places like Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, all included in that, as far south as Little Rock. So February was not normal. It was quite warm, and you can see places like Fargo and Grand Forks running 15 degrees above normal for this time of year for the month of February. So we'll see what happens in March. In the meantime, as we head through the day today, parts of the southern plains picking up some rain. You can see stretch from Texas to Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, even into Mississippi. Some spots that are going to pick up some rain are areas that have been dealing with those wildfires that we've told you about. So some much needed rain for folks there. And then we really ramp up the rainfall across the southeast tomorrow. We'll see a bit of a wintry mix across parts of the Appalachians. So heads up there, could be a little slick on the roads as you get out for your Friday. And that'll last into the evening hours, too. Rainfall amounts anywhere from about a half an inch to an inch, maybe isolated spots across the Carolinas, the coastal regions, that is, could see up to 2 inches. And that'll leave you with a soggy finish to your work week. Now, out west, a different story. Winter in full effect, and we could be seeing the strongest winter storm of the season for folks across parts of the mountain regions there. We've got the winter alerts to prove it. We're going to see blizzard conditions in some spots. And notice we're already dealing with the rain and the snow across portions of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Now, the heavy snow will really start to ramp up here as we get through the day today. But it's not just the snow. It's the winds. It's the decreased visibility. It's the really slick conditions, and not just at the high elevations. We're going to see pretty impressive snowfall rates. 1 to 2 inches per hour is likely across parts of the Sierra range, but we could see up to 3 to 5 inches per hour. This is going to be, like I said, the strongest of the season, Joe, and it's going to pack a punch for folks there. We could see 5 to 10 feet of snow. It's good because we, of course, need it as we're running well well below normal for the snowpack this season. But we're going to need to, of course, have to. We're gonna need that when summer comes around. So they've got to deal with the impacts today.
Exactly. Take it now. All right, Angie, thank you so much. Today, Texas will be the scene of a different kind of dueling visits made by both former President Trump and the current President Joe Biden. Both are heading to the Lone Star State to discuss the situation at the southern border. It's a chance for both men to lay out their policy plans for what's going to be one of the biggest issues of the 2024 election. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from Brownsville, Texas, where President Biden is expected to be this afternoon. So, Jay, what can we expect from his visit? What's his message?
Yeah, and Joe, it's the second visit of President Biden to the southern border since taking office. The White House says that he will meet with Border Patrol agents along with local officials, get some feedback on the current situation along the border. But he's also here to ratchet up more pressure on congressional Republicans to move on bipartisan border security measures. There's been a back and forth on Capitol Hill and between the White House on getting something done here. He will lay out what he believes is the fastest way to ease tensions and problems along the border, and looking for an audience that may indeed step up a push to get something done in Washington.
So, Jay, Trump is set to deliver his remarks in Eagle Pass. It's about 330 miles away from where you are right now. I assume that will be a different visit, a different tone, right?
Yeah, no question, Joe. He's about, as you said, 300 miles or so away up the Rio Grande Valley. The border issue has been a primary part of his campaign, a focus along a campaign trail. And to give you an idea of how he may address things here overnight, he released a campaign video on social media linking a recent murder, that Georgia nursing student, Laken Riley, killed by a migrant, saying that it's linked to what he calls President Biden's and the administration's, quote, open border policy. So he is on full attack as he comes here to Texas.
And, Jay, while we have you, we have the results of President Biden's annual physical, which happened yesterday. I mean, polls tell us his age and his health are a major concern, a major issue for voters. So what are we hearing from his doctor?
Yeah. Yes, doctor says, and I'm quoting here, that he is fit for duty. You're right. The president's health has been under scrutiny and continues to be. Both of these men up in their years, so there are a lot of questions about their ability to serve. The physician says that the president shows no evidence of mental or physical issues. And quoting again here, he fully executes all of his responsibilities without any exemptions or accommodations. So a clean bill of health, Joe.
All right, Jay Gray, thank you so much. Today on Capitol Hill, the House is set to vote on a short-term bill that would avert a partial government shutdown this week. The stopgap deal was announced yesterday by lawmakers. It would fund federal agencies into March. If passed through Congress, the deal would buy lawmakers more time to pass a longer-term funding bill down the road. Now, this deal comes hours after Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell shocked the political world, announcing he'll step down as leader of Senate Republicans later this year. That'll bring to an end his time as the longest-serving leader in Senate history. A lot to cover. Let's bring in NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake in Washington. So let's start with the stopgap measure agreed to by bipartisan negotiators. Tell us about it. How likely is it this is going to get through Congress by the end of tomorrow to avoid that partial shutdown?
Yeah, Joe, this is an extension of the extension that lawmakers gave themselves earlier this year to finish their work. The hope on a bipartisan basis is that this will be enough time, with one additional week to fund about half the government and then a couple more weeks after that to fund the second half, for lawmakers to finish these funding bills and fund the government through the rest of this fiscal year. So that would be all the way out through September. This is the plan. All the leaders are on board. But with this Congress and the number of votes it would take to get this all across the finish line, Dateline. I think we have to wait and see where the votes are before we know for sure we're not going to kind of accidentally wander into a shutdown sometime over the next month.
So yesterday was busy enough on Capitol Hill, and then came this surprising news. Mitch McConnell stepping down as Senate leader. He's been the GOP leader since 2007. What are we learning about why he's stepping down now?
Yeah, the longest serving leader of either party in congressional history, and he's been in the Senate longer than I've been alive, Joe. I think the factors here are a couple of fold. First, we've seen both his political strength and his physical strength fading a little bit over the last couple of years. Remember, he had those freezing incidents in the Capitol last year after recovering from a concussion. Also, the party has just been moving in a different direction, away from his brand of conservatism and towards a more Trump brand of republicanism. Also, McConnell suffered the death of his sister-in-law a few weeks ago, and that seemed to have crystallized some of his thinking about his legacy, which he discussed a little bit on the floor yesterday. Listen.
I always imagined a moment when I had total clarity and peace about the sunset of my work. A moment when I'm certain I have helped preserve the ideals I so strongly believed. That day arrived today.
So, Joe, I think while the idea that McConnell was eventually going to hang it up, he is 82 years old, is not particularly surprising. The suddenness of this yesterday caught basically everyone in Capitol Hill off guard. It was a shocking moment in a chamber where those are few and far between. So you talked about the fact that the party's sort of been moving away from his style. That begs the question, who could be in the running to take over for McConnell once he steps down? Yeah, it's a great question. I think the three frontrunners, and people will get used to hearing this, are the three GOP Johns. John Thune from South Dakota, who's the current Senate #2. John Cornyn from Texas, who was the Senate Republican #2 before him. And John Barrasso from Wyoming, who's the current #3, but probably the closest to the MAGA base of the party of those three men. This is an election that will happen behind closed doors of just Republican senators after a new class gets elected in November. Probably the most important election with the smallest constituency of anything happening in the country this year, Joe. All right, three Johns. That could make it both easy and also perhaps confusing. That's right. Hake, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, budding concerns about the long-term impacts of smoking marijuana. What a new study found, plus what doctors want you to know. Up first after the break, a grim milestone in Gaza. More than 30,000 people killed in the Israel-Hamas war. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Turning to the Middle East, where the war in Gaza has reached a devastating milestone. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says more than 30,000 people have now been killed inside Gaza. There's also word from local officials this morning of an Israeli attack that killed dozens of people who were waiting for humanitarian aid in Gaza City. The Israeli military says it's looking into that report. Violence comes as the UN's human rights chief called for an investigation into war crimes, which he says are being committed by both Israel and Hamas.
The war in Gaza must end. Clear violations of international human rights and humanitarian laws, including war crimes and possibly other crimes under international law, have been committed by all parties at imminent risk of famine. Almost all are drinking salty and contaminated water. In northern Gaza, where the operational space for humanitarian work is now almost zero, many are already believed to be starving.
Let's bring in NBC News foreign correspondent Josh Letterman. So, Josh, let's start with that attack on a crowd of Palestinians who are waiting for food aid. What are we hearing from all sides about this?
Well, the death toll in that incident, Joe, has now climbed above 100, according to new statistics put out just in the last few minutes by the health ministry in the Hamas-run Gaza Strip. Now, Hamas and Gazan officials say that these Gazans were simply searching for food in one of the hardest hit parts of the Gaza Strip when they came under Israeli fire. The Israeli military says that the Gazans there were actually looting aid trucks and eventually ended up trampling each other. But now we are hearing from an Israeli government official who says that in the course of that mayhem, some of these Gazans were actually approaching IDF troops who were there to secure that humanitarian convoy in a way that felt threatening to the Israeli military. And as a result, the Israeli military responded with live fire. And so that does seem to be an acknowledgement by Israel that it was involved in at least some of these deaths that we're seeing as that death toll continues to grow. But clearly just the latest sign of how the humanitarian crisis is now fueling growing death tolls and more violence within the Gaza Strip, Joe.
Let's talk more about that, especially when it comes to food aid. Aid agencies have been sounding the alarm about starvation in Gaza. We're getting reports 6 children recently died of malnutrition, dehydration at 2 hospitals there. What can you tell us about that?
Well, a huge focus of the humanitarian crisis right now, Joe, is in the northern Gaza Strip, which you'll recall is an area that Israel months ago urged all civilians to flee. And so those who are still there are really cut off from the rest of Gaza and in large part from humanitarian assistance. And I want you to hear from a doctor, a head of one of the hospitals in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, who spoke to our team in Gaza about what he's seeing.
We are hungry. And we haven't any medical supply, and we haven't food to support the oxygen station which needed for citizens in the north of Gaza. A few days before, we lost about 4 children due to the starvation and dehydration, due to the lack of the feeding in the children.
The United Nations says that this month, aid into the Gaza Strip fell 50% compared to what it was last month, which was already insufficient. And so in the last few days, we're seeing a shift in strategy. Foreign nations are starting to airdrop aid into the Gaza Strip, including Jordan, which did another airdrop today into Gaza. Canada says it is looking into that as well. The UK has been providing aid that is being dropped by aircraft into the Gaza Strip. Clearly, all countries are trying to figure out how to safely get aid into Gaza, given that land routes into Gaza and through the Strip are so dangerous right now, Joe.
And Josh, where do things stand on the hostage ceasefire talks? Remember, just a few days ago, President Biden appeared optimistic. Where are we now?
We haven't really seen any signs of optimism since those comments from President Biden. In fact, we've heard from Hamas suggesting there is no breakthrough to announce that they are still standing firm behind their positions, which are very at odds with what Israel says it needs to see in order to get some type of a ceasefire and hostage deal. We know that talks continue to go on. The Qataris are heavily involved in trying to broker a deal. They're talking to Hamas. They're talking to Israel. They're talking to the United States. But until there's a deal, Joe, there's no deal.
All right, Josh, thank you so much. Hunter Biden is calling the GOP impeachment inquiry into his father a charade based on MAGA-motivated conspiracies. After a year of back and forth yesterday, the younger Biden finally testified before 2 committees that are trying to impeach President Biden. It was a closed-door deposition. House Republicans claim the Bidens used the president's brand to gain lucrative business dealings, but so far, they've not offered any concrete evidence to back it up.
After 7 hours of questions, the Republican majority ends the day with where they started. They have produced no evidence that would do anything to support the notion that there was any financial transactions that involved Hunter with his father, period.
For more, we're joined by NBC News senior investigative producer Sarah Fitzpatrick. Sarah, good to have you with us. So it was a closed-door session, but we are learning a lot about what happened. Walk us through what we're learning about the deposition.
So the deposition yesterday lasted over 6 hours, and at times it got very heated between staff and members in what sources told NBC were kerfuffles over lines of questioning and frequent interruptions, particularly in the first hour, which was focused on Hunter's business dealings in China and related to other Chinese nationals. In Hunter's opening statement, and we're told by his attorney throughout his testimony during the day, Hunter was very clear that at no time his father was involved in any of his businesses. His attorney told us last night that Republicans provided not one shred of evidence to the contrary because none exists. I was really struck by the certainty Hunter's legal team had coming out of the room, because anything that Hunter said under oath yesterday could be used in the 2 federal criminal trials he's facing.
So, Sarah, Republican sources on the Oversight Committee, they previously said, President Biden's testimony would be the crescendo of the House impeachment inquiry. Is that still the case right now? I mean, what are you hearing from House Republicans?
So we've definitely seen a shift in posture from House Republicans. They've previously made really huge claims about serious alleged crimes that they believe Hunter Biden and his father, Joe Biden, were involved in. But when they came out of the deposition yesterday, House Oversight Committee Chairman, Republican James Comer, he said that the deposition quote, proved several bits of evidence, but he could only point to, quote, inconsistencies with prior witness testimony. Listen to those words, bits, inconsistencies. Those are not the words of a smoking gun, and definitely a far cry from the high crimes and misdemeanors that they would need as grounds for impeachment.
So all this begs the question, what comes next? Where do they go from here?
So the committee has told us that their impeachment inquiry is ongoing. They're going to continue to send out subpoenas, interview witnesses, and they expect a report on all of their findings to be ready sometime this spring. But we heard for the first time yesterday that they're now going to move into a new phase, and that's going to include a public hearing. Exactly what that's going to entail, who's going to be there, that remains to be seen. But of course, remember, a public hearing where the American people can hear directly from Hunter Biden is what he and his team have been asking for all along. Joe?
All right. Sarah Fitzpatrick, thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it. Coming up, an execution by lethal injection stopped after 8 failed attempts to insert an IV line. When we come back, more on what happened that's renewing concerns about capital punishment. And a new study sparking concern about the long-term health impacts of marijuana use. Stay with us. You're watching Morning News Now. Welcome back. The execution of one of the nation's longest-serving death row inmates was delayed in Idaho yesterday, and that's raising new questions about lethal injection. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz reports on what happened.
The execution of Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate halted after several failed attempts to administer a lethal injection.
It wasn't a difficult decision. It was the right decision.
Serial killer Thomas Eugene Creech was set to be executed at a maximum security institution near Boise. Prison officials say the medical team made 8 attempts in multiple areas to establish an IV line before pausing the execution.
It was a vein quality issue that made them not confident in their ability to administer chemicals through the IV site.
Media witnesses describe how the 73-year-old laid strapped on the execution table for more than 45 minutes, at times looking over and waving at his family.
His eyes started to fill with tears, and I heard him sniffling.
Creech, who is convicted of 5 murders, has been in prison since 1974. His failed execution coming just weeks after Alabama executed a man using nitrogen gas for the first time, after an attempt using an IV also didn't work. In Idaho, there's a different alternative.
At this point, Idaho law provides for execution by lethal injection or firing squad now.
This latest incident, the same day another convicted murder is set for execution in Texas. Ivan Cantu, who still says he's innocent. His supporters petitioning to stop it.
They didn't believe me. Today they do.
All this continuing to raise questions about capital punishment and the most humane way to perform an execution.
Our thanks to Liz Kreutz for that report. Idaho officials say Creech is now back in his cell. They're letting the death warrant expire as they work to figure out the next steps. A new study finds that using marijuana as little as once a month is linked to a greater risk of heart attack and stroke. Researchers at Massachusetts General Hospital looked at data from nearly 500,000 patients. It's one of the largest studies to date to make the connection between the drug and these health issues. The study also found these risks rose sharply the more frequently marijuana was used. Let's talk more about this with NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Good to have you with us. So walk us through more of the study's findings. Did the researchers find like a direct link between marijuana and these risks, and who should be most concerned here?
Yeah, Joe, this was probably one of the first studies where we had this comprehensive set of data looking over 4 years, as you mentioned, 27 states, 2 territories, looking at all adults. So let's just caveat that we don't have anything on youth and adolescents. We'll get to that in a moment. But basically for adults 18 and over, that over the last 30 days, and they asked if they had used any marijuana whatsoever in the form of whatever form, but primarily smoking, because that's really where we see something of an effect. And what they found is exactly as you pointed out, that people who had daily use of marijuana, largely through smoking, had as high as a 42% increased likelihood risk of stroke and a 25% of some sort of coronary event, like a heart attack. That's pretty significant. That was also independent of smoking with tobacco. So I want to make that point, that people have often said, well, marijuana smoking is not as bad as tobacco smoking. Here we have proof and signals that it possibly is. And then to your point, even people who used it weekly or even once in a month had an elevated risk that was statistically significant. So Bottom line is that marijuana, especially in the form of smoking, can pose significant health hazard.
Let's talk about how many people actually use marijuana. The National Survey on Drug Use and Health finds 1 in 5 people over the age of 12 now report using it in the last year, especially for the younger people there. I'm looking at over the age of 12. What are some of the health risks?
Yeah, so incredible health risks. I think this study is going to point to the need to study youth and adolescents more closely, especially, Joe, as we see a rise in obesity, high cholesterol, even in youth. So for that population, and then think about the kind of development or maturity of lungs, you can get an unfortunate exposure to that toxin with a very small amount of smoking. So I think this is exactly where researchers are pointing. And we should point out that in many states it's legal. And I think there's been a perception that there's really no harm from this. I will say this to anybody, mention this when you have your physical, no matter what age you are. And I think for all the doctors and health professionals listening, this should be added in with your tobacco smoking screening. Ask a very specific question about marijuana use.
So you mentioned smoking. How about vaping or using edibles?
Right.
Are those considered any safer? And just tobacco use, how does that make the picture more complicated here?
It's much more complicated because we've spoken before, Joe, about kind of vaping, which was thought to be maybe a safer alternative. Actually turns out that you expose the lungs to some of these toxins, particularly when some of the products are labeled in a manner where it's not clear what that exposure is. So bottom line, if you're looking for safer alternatives, one, you need to kind of talk about your use with a health professional, and then look to products that don't have that THC component that has that kind of more toxic component. Tend to look for products with cannabidiol, CBD. I think that's probably the most familiar product, which doesn't have as much of that psychedelic effect. But I think that for me, it's very clear that we're going to have incredibly kind of direct conversations, not just about marijuana use, but also, to your point, not just smoking, but access to these toxins and other products. Truly, we haven't studied enough, and there are more products being developed than we even understand kind of how to study. This study from the National Heart, Lung, Blood Institute really points to the effects of smoking marijuana in its form, and then I think gives us kind of clues to what other forms could lead to.
That's a great point. There's so many different ways out there. Also, I couldn't pronounce that word either, so kudos to you.
It's CBD,
there you go.
cannabidiol. Oh, I'm going to get it. So CBD.
All right. Dr. Patel, as always, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Coming up, fighting back against gift card scams. After the break, the first of its kind bill meant to keep thieves from stealing money off your unused gift cards. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. A Maryland state senator is introducing first-of-its-kind legislation prompted by an NBC News investigation into gift card scams. Our senior consumer investigative correspondent Vicki Wynn shows us how the legislation could protect your money.
People don't know to even look for the tampering.
Maryland State Senator Ben Kramer says he first learned about gift card draining scams from our report in December. NBC senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett lost more than $1,000 after buying these gift cards from a Manhattan CVS.
These do not appear to be tampered with at all, right? Not even a little bit. Right. All of the seals look totally fine.
Gift card scams cost users more than $228 million last year, with gift card draining among the newest schemes. That's when you buy a physical gift card, load it with money, and a scammer somehow steals that money.
Had I not seen your segment, this bill would not have been introduced. It is a problem across the country, and consumers are being ripped off.
Kramer says his bill would require gift cards to be sealed in a manner that is not easily opened without signs of tampering. For retailers who can't comply, the bill mandates they secure their gift cards in a location only employees can access.
All they have to do is glue this back down.
You don't think this is enough to protect a consumer?
Not nearly sufficient.
But Houston officer and police union director Ray Hunt says based on the union's experience, he suspects the scams start before gift cards ever get to the stores.
It may go all the way back to where the card is created, where someone who's working there is giving these numbers to them before it's even scratched off there. I'm just telling you that I based on what we've done, I cannot trust gift cards.
You're saying it could be an inside job?
Absolutely.
He says the union lost thousands of dollars in Kroger gift cards that were drained almost immediately after they were activated, with no signs of tampering.
What our research tells us is they're getting the number on the back of the card, they're entering that into a program, and that program constantly checks it to see when it's activated. As soon as it's activated, it charges $98 to an Amazon account somewhere, puts that money on account for someone.
The union recently filed this class action lawsuit against Kroger, alleging the company failed to take reasonable measures to protect its Visa gift cards against unauthorized tampering and failed to refund the officers the missing balance. Kroger did not reply to our request for comment, but offered to replace the gift cards. The Retail Gift Card Association says it's possible for scams to originate within a supply chain. However, we have extensive controls as well as sophisticated processes in place that maintain the highest levels of security. Considering the gift card industry's total volume, fraud losses are relatively small. Susan Kuhn says she welcomes any attempt at making gift cards more secure and won't buy another after her experience. $800 in Walmart gift cards drained, money meant for families in need at her Houston church.
I have not bought a gift card since. I am not inclined to buy a gift card because I have absolutely zero confidence that the money will be there.
Kuhn says Walmart declined to refund her money, but after we contacted the company, a Walmart spokesperson said, quote, "We take fraud allegations seriously and will be reaching out to Ms. Kuhn's." To avoid being scammed, consider an e-gift card, but be sure your recipient knows it's coming. Use all gift cards immediately to reduce the risk of draining and give cash when possible.
Cash is king.
Vicki Nguyen, NBC News.
More financial headlines. A new Justice Department probe into that scary Boeing blowout last month. CNBC's Savannah Hanau has that and other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning to you. Yes, so the Justice Department is looking into the door plug blowout on a Boeing 737 MAX 9 jet last month, which could expose the company to criminal charges. Bloomberg reports the government is considering whether Boeing is meeting requirements under a deferred prosecution agreement it signed following two deadly plane crashes in 2018 and 2019. If it's determined the blowout breaches that agreement, Boeing could face criminal liability. Yesterday, the FAA said it's giving the company 90 days to come up with a plan to fix quality problems. Anheuser-Busch and the Teamsters Union have reached a tentative deal on a new contract avoiding a strike. The Teamsters have threatened to walk off the job at the company's 12 U.S. breweries if an agreement wasn't struck by midnight tonight. Now, the union represents 5,000 workers who brew and package beer and even take care of Anheuser-Busch's famous Clydesdale horses. A strike would have been the first against the company since 1976. And today, February 29th, is Leap Day, and several restaurants and retailers are offering deals for the rare occasion. At Chipotle, rewards members can get a free side of guac with orders placed online or through the app. Staples is giving away 29,000 free passport photos and also 29 times the points on travel and office essentials through its new Easy Rewards program. Hardee's is offering customers 29% off any order through its rewards app. And if you book a room at the Great Wolf Lodge in the Poconos with the code LEAP, you can get overnight stays starting at $29 per person. Some pretty good deals there, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. I'm thinking of all the Leap Day babies that are being born today and how cool
I think about
that's
that
gonna
every leap year.
No kidding. All right, Savannah, thank you so much.
Yes.
Coming up, reviving an important piece of American history. Up next, we're going to take you to the old home of the country's first black opera company. It's now getting a new life after sitting empty for decades. Stay with us. This is Morning News Now. We end this hour with a look at a house in Pittsburgh that has been empty for decades, but don't let its appearance fool you. It's actually a key part of black history, once home to the first black opera house in the country. Now, one woman is trying to bring the music back. Here's NBC's Harry Smith.
This old house in Pittsburgh's Hill District hasn't just seen better days. It knew glorious days, important days, historic days. Where are we now?
We are sitting on the third floor of the first black opera company in America.
Janae Solomon was driving past the abandoned house 20-some years ago. For reasons unexplainable, she bought it and climbed aboard an incredible learning curve.
Mary Condwell Dawson was a hidden figure. She was completely erased from history and opera history.
Classically trained Dawson was turned away from the Pittsburgh Opera, so she formed her own company. The National Negro Opera Company toured through America's big cities, playing to packed houses.
It's such a slice of America that I think a lot of white people have no understanding or comprehension of.
That's true, and this is why we need to tell this full American history story.
We wondered what a voice might sound like here after decades of silence.
Because my mouth is alive.
Jasmine Awalia is an artist in residence now with the Pittsburgh Opera. The words of Langston Hughes.
Everything I learned surprised me. People that started here went all the way to the Metropolitan Opera, and they started right here in Pittsburgh on Apple Street. Everything I learned about the house along the way was a surprise.
Hidden history, for this old house was the unofficial Black cultural center of Pittsburgh.
So this entire floor is where people stayed. This was the residence of the house.
Lena Horne, Joe Louis, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington. Early Black and brown members of the Steelers and Pirates were said to be welcome here.
I would have loved to have been there. I can't even imagine.
Well, maybe you're going to recreate some of that.
We will. We will.
Solomon wants to return this house to its former glory. Not easy.
Does all of this have to be replaced?
No, it's actually going to be restored and preserved.
Yeah.
What makes preservation construction so expensive is that it's not being replaced. We are restoring it and preserving it.
Millions have been raised. Millions more are required. While much of the house's history was lost, the legacy of Mary Cardwell Dawson has lived on in Pittsburgh.
And I've seen sin breakers dancing.
Candace Burgess is a PhD student at Pitt.
I was taught by Anquity Kinzel, who was taught by Damaris Cooper, who also taught me when I was really young, who was taught by Ola Brees Beckham, who was administrator for the National Negro Opera Company.
Burgess' graduate work focuses on Black classical artists.
Does it make you proud?
It does. I think it makes me realize that classical music, while it may be European, it never was white. And in my search, I continually find that besides Black people of all races and creeds were involved in the creation of opera.
History to disprove the myth of absence. There's much to learn from the old house on Apple Street.
Our thanks to Harry Smith for that report. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now, but stay with us. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks for starting your leap day with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. Right now on Morning News Now, a potential game changer in the race for the White House. The Supreme Court setting the stage to decide whether former President Trump should be immune from federal charges stemming from his alleged role in trying to overturn the 2020 election. Could the trial for that case now even happen before this November's election? We're going to bring you the latest. A shocker in the Senate. It's longtime Republican leader Senator Mitch McConnell saying he's going to leave his post come November. We've got more on the succession battle that's already taking shape on Capitol Hill. We're also watching those widespread wildfires in Texas this morning that have now turned deadly. More than 1 million acres already torched. We're on the ground as crews there race to contain the damage. And later this hour, we're flipping the script with some of the actors behind a groundbreaking new musical called Most Likely Not To. It's bringing the challenges of one rare disease straight to center stage. Can't wait to bring you that conversation. We're going to begin this hour with major developments in the federal election interference trial against former President Donald Trump. The Supreme Court has agreed to weigh Trump's claim that he's entitled to presidential immunity in the case. Now, that decision comes with major implications. It's now possible the former president will not face a trial for his attempts to overturn the 2020 election before this year's presidential election in November. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett explains.
Hey there, it's the issue that could make or break prosecutors' case against Donald Trump. The U.S. Supreme Court's involvement on immunity could hand him a win or a loss, but either way, the calendar works to his advantage, making the chances that he will face trial before Election Day this year on charges of trying to overturn the last election more remote by the day.
This morning, the U.S. Supreme Court handing Donald Trump the gift of time. The justices agreeing to decide whether the Republican frontrunner should be immune from federal charges because his attempts to reverse the 2020 election happened while he was still in office.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
In a one-page order, the High Court saying it will hear arguments in the case the week of April 22nd. But with no firm date for its final ruling, the prospect of a federal criminal trial being completed before the November election becoming increasingly unrealistic. And if the Supreme Court rules in Mr. Trump's favor, the charges against him in Washington, D.C. wiped out completely.
You cannot allow a president to be out there without immunity. They don't have immunity. You don't have a presidency.
The stakes sky high for the former president, who has cast the prosecution itself as election interference, and special counsel Jack Smith's team, which has accused Mr. Trump of defrauding the government he once led.
My office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court.
But the case has been beset by appeals on the immunity question, with lower courts finding Mr. Trump should not be shielded from prosecution. The Trump campaign seizing on the Supreme Court taking up the case as another fundraising opportunity, with the former president pressing his case on social media. This as the High Court is set to rule on another issue with major implications for the future of the presidential race. The justices currently weighing Colorado's move to ban Mr. Trump from the ballot. Voters there set to go to the polls next week on Super Tuesday. And late Wednesday, Illinois became the third state to find the former president ineligible to serve under the Constitution's insurrection clause in the 14th Amendment in light of his role on January 6th.
Meanwhile, a significant development in a different Trump case, an appeals court judge here in New York rejecting Mr. Trump's effort to avoid paying that massive civil fraud judgment for more than $450 million as he tries to appeal the decision. His attorney saying in a legal filing he may need to sell off some of his properties to cover it if he can't get a bond or is forced to pay the full amount. Back to you.
All right, Laura Jarrett, thank you so much. Let's bring in NBC News Now legal analyst Angela Cinadella with more on this. Okay, so obviously legal experts are weighing in on this. So are politicians, no surprise. You got former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying, quote, the Supreme Court is placing itself on trial. It's always tricky when the Supreme Court has to get into these politically charged issues. When they do get involved in this, what's the impact on sort of public trust in the institution?
So you could understand that public trust in this case would be waning because, ironically, we don't believe the Supreme Court will actually end up ruling in Trump's favor. There is almost no way that they will rule. Presidents will never be liable for any criminal act whatsoever in the official duties of the presidency. So given that, in this de facto way, it appears that Trump will actually be let off the hook. But I'm going to say this, even though it sounds naive, the Supreme Court behind closed doors, they don't see themselves as political. We see them as conservative and liberal, but they do not. So they might almost be arguing that if they were to not take on this momentous case, because then it could affect the election in a different way, that itself is too political. So from their perspective, they're thinking they stand the test of time. Their reasoning will go for generations. So to them, it's not political.
We've never, of course, seen a former president face criminal charges like this before, but issues surrounding the presidency do make it to the court all the time. I mean, how common is it to see the Supreme Court have to continually address these issues around presidents and around elections?
Well, it makes sense they would, because honestly, who else is going to? These are momentous issues, and they affect every single person in this country. So the Supreme Court has intervened time and time again, but they try to do it as narrowly as possible, again, to appear to not be political. So we see there is already this 14th Amendment question on the table. There's bans here, there's bans there, and I believe the Supreme Court will continue to believe that they're going to stand the test of time.
So the Supreme Court is looking at one specific case here. That's the federal election interference case. But the former president faces charges in 3 other cases right now. Will the decision here by the Supreme Court, especially if they say, yeah, he has presidential immunity, does that affect all the criminal cases.
So this is very relevant, not in New York, because he did not raise that defense there that there was any criminal immunity because those acts were not involved in his presidential office term. But in terms of Georgia and Florida, yes, if he were to be given presidential immunity, they would apply across the board. This in some way has been Trump's favorite argument to raise, that because I was president, none of these charges should apply. So Georgia, we saw all of those delays with Fani Willis and whether or not she was dating her fellow prosecutor at that time. But this could be an even bigger delay, Joe.
All right, we have so many questions. Angela Sanadella, thank you for helping us answer them. At the southern border, President Biden and former President Trump are expected to hold rival events in Texas later today, showcasing the differences both men have on immigration policy ahead of the 2024 election. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez is there. He joined us from Brownsville, Texas. That's where President Biden is expected to be. So, Gabe, we could be in for sort of an interesting split-screen moment here. Walk us through first what we can expect from President Biden's visit.
Hi there, Joe. Good morning. Well, this will be President Biden's second border visit since taking office, and he's hoping to highlight the need to pass that bipartisan border security deal that boosts resources and tightens asylum rules. You'll remember it failed in Congress, due in part to former President Trump's opposition. The president is expected to meet with Border Patrol agents and local leaders here in Brownsville, which has actually seen a drop in border crossings compared to previous years. The largest number of crossings has now shifted west to other parts of Texas and Arizona, Joe.
So how different is former President Trump's visit and message going to be in comparison with what we expect to hear from President Biden today?
Well, Joe, former President Trump will be just over 300 miles away in Eagle Pass, Texas, and he's expected to capitalize on those record number of crossings and put the blame squarely on President Biden. Former president is promising to carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history if reelected. And the issue of immigration now front and center during the 2024 campaign, Joe.
Gabe, well, we have you. Yesterday, we got a report on President Biden's health following his annual physical. We know voters care deeply about the health and the age of both potential candidates in the election this year. What were the takeaways from the physical?
Well, Joe, President Biden was declared fit for duty and overall healthy by his doctor. The president telling reporters yesterday there is nothing different than last year. And we did learn that Mr. Biden's gait has stiffened because of age-related wear and tear of his spine. Also, he has started using a sleep apnea machine and had a root canal in June. In response to questions about his mental fitness following that special counsel report, the White House press secretary says his doctors do not think he needs a cognitive test, Joe.
All right, Gabe, thank you so much. It's the end of an era on Capitol Hill as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell announces he is stepping down from his leadership role. It's the end of an era on Capitol Hill as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell announces he is stepping down from his leadership role. The longtime Kentucky senator says he's going to step down from his post in November, but will serve out the remainder of this term. The announcement, a surprising one, came yesterday as lawmakers agreed to a deal that would avert a partial government shutdown. NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake joins us from Washington with more on all this. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. And yeah, McConnell leaves his leadership post later this year as the most consequential and the most controversial Senate leader in decades. But the party he has helmed for so long is changing around him. And he says it's time for leaders to change with it. This morning, a changing of the guard on Capitol Hill.
It's time for the next generation of leadership.
Longtime Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says he'll step down from that post in November after an unprecedented 18 years leading his party and will retire at the end of his term in 2027. At times, emotional.
I love the Senate. It's been my life.
McConnell, who defied Democratic presidents and helped reshape the federal courts, is embracing his controversial image.
I still have enough gas in my tank to thoroughly disappoint my critics.
It comes after the 82-year-old suffered 2 freezing episodes in public last summer, where he was unable to speak. McConnell sidestepped questions about his health afterwards, with the congressional doctor saying they were not the result of a stroke or seizure. McConnell has seen his influence in the party diminished as he's faced criticism from some fellow GOP senators since his falling out with former President Trump over January 6th, who has attacked him and his wife repeatedly online and on the campaign trail.
Washington Republicans like Mitch McConnell, who's the absolute worst.
McConnell ultimately voted to acquit Mr. Trump in his second impeachment trial while acknowledging
President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day.
President Biden paying tribute to McConnell. With former President Trump now consolidating control of the party, the battle to succeed McConnell has already begun, with several senators acknowledging it will likely be a contest between top Republicans known as the Three Johns: Wyoming Senator John Barrasso, Texas Senator John Cornyn, and South Dakota Senator John Thune. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, a Trump ally, asked who he'd support.
Yeah, someone named John.
If that weren't enough, we also learned of a new bipartisan plan yesterday to push back Friday's government funding deadline for another week. That should give Congress time to pass bills to fund half the government by next Friday, the other half by mid-March. Joe, if everything goes according to plan here, that would avoid a government shutdown. But you know as well as I do, with this Congress, everything does not always go according to plan. Yes, no kidding. All right, Garrett, thank you so much. Now to the severe weather impacting millions from coast to coast. Out west, they're dealing with heavy snow as severe storms tear through the Northeast. All this while dangerous and now deadly wildfires have been raging across Texas, forcing new evacuations this morning. NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas has more.
With multiple wildfires torching Texas, crews are taking on the colossal task of getting the flames under control as officials confirm one person has died. The massive Smokehouse Creek fire has already burned more than 850,000 acres across the Texas Panhandle, quickly becoming the second largest fire in the state's history. In an instant, the inferno surrounded rural communities, sending livestock fleeing and people rushing to evacuate.
You were watching this burn?
Yes, it was so hot you could barely breathe.
Satellite images show entire neighborhoods charred. The flames driven by unseasonably high temperatures, dry conditions, and strong winds, creating rare fire tornadoes.
The tornadic fire would whirl and whirl, and it was a sound and a feeling. It was so hot.
Right there, funnel. It comes as the National Weather Service confirms more than a dozen tornadoes touched down in the Midwest on Tuesday, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Overnight, that same system bringing falling temperatures and severe storms to the Northeast. This morning, first responders from coast to coast dealing with the full spectrum of Mother Nature's fury.
Our thanks to Guad Venegas for that report. Let's take a closer look at the massive effort to try and put out these fires. Juan Rodriguez joins us now. He's the Public Information Officer for Texas A&M Forest Service. Thank you so much for joining us. So first of all, just where do things stand right now? What is it crews are focusing on when it comes to battling these fires today?
So as of today, crews are going to be working on that southern part of the fire, close to Skellytown, and then closer to the town of Stinnett and Fritch as well, off of the highways over there where it really got impacted and where we're seeing a lot of activity. We're trying to get a lot of those fire edges really buttoned up today. Yesterday, crews were able to make really good progress because the weather gave us that upper hand with the lower winds. And so we want to keep up that progress right now up until the weekend.
Good to hear progress is being made. You know, I mean, I used to work on the West Coast. It was typical to cover wildfires throughout California. We don't usually see activity like this in Texas. I mean, the Smokehouse Creek fire is now the second largest one in Texas history. How does this compare with fires you've dealt with in the past? How have things changed in just the last few years in Texas?
Well, so definitely in this region of Texas, we see a lot of very fast moving wildfires that grow very quickly. But with this one, we weren't really expecting something this huge. It's definitely something that's going down in the records. It was caused by extremely high winds that came in Monday and Tuesday this week. In addition to dry fuels and hot temperatures, it made those 2 days specifically extremely receptive to burn.
You say in the Panhandle you're used to fast-moving fires, but were you surprised just how quickly this one spread?
Yes, sir. I think it really took everybody by surprise. Just the amount of distance that this fire had on it, spreading over 50 miles in a matter of 24 hours was pretty incredible to see.
Are you worried about, the heat and high winds returning this weekend? Do you feel like now is your window that you have to get a lot taken care of?
Absolutely. And fire crews are really taking that into consideration with operations right now. That's why yesterday, today, and the following days, we really want to take advantage of the weather that we have. Coming in this weekend, we do have some more elevated conditions. And so that just makes us want to get this buttoned up as much as we can, even more right now. So crews are making good work, and we're going to try to keep making that good work as long as we can.
The governor declared a disaster for 60 counties. What kind of resources does that give you to try and help fight these fires?
So it definitely brought in a lot more resources. We have aviation now. We have more fire crews, more fire engines over here able to help us combat these fires. And along with it's also bringing in relief for those who have lost homes and properties and things like that because of this fire. So it's definitely going to benefit us in the long run.
All right, Juan Rodriguez, we know that you're incredibly busy this morning, so we thank you for taking the time to join us. We're thinking of you, your crews, and everyone impacted by these fires right now.
Thank you.
All right, now let's take a look at the weather. Parts of the West Coast could see the biggest snowstorm of the season. Let's bring in meteorologist Angie Lastman with more on everything we're seeing all around the country.
Hey there, Joe. Good morning to you. We indeed have a couple of systems that are going to impact folks across the West Coast here for a couple of days. This isn't just a today problem. This will last well into our weekend. Here's what's going on right now, though. You can see the heavy rain has already started to inch closer to the coast. We've got some snow falling across portions of the Pacific Northwest, and we've got plenty of winter alerts in effect right now. Notice that we have blizzard warnings already in effect across parts of the Sierra Range. That's what you're seeing in purple there, but plenty of winter storm watches, warnings, and advisories up as well. This is the region that we're going to see really have to deal with some heavy snow, some heavy rain, strong winds, and deteriorating conditions here over the next couple of days. Here's how it plays out today. We'll start to see that heavier snow reach into portions of Northern California. The rain will also be an issue across portions of the coastal areas. We'll see likely low visibility, some of those strong winds that I mentioned. That's all on the table for today, and it continues for tomorrow. We see another system, though, inch closer to the coast, and this is really going to ramp things up for us. This is why I say it's not just a today problem. We're going to see it get a lot worse here before it gets better. We'll see plenty of rain close to the coast, and then those snowfall rates are going to be impressive. 1 to 2 inches per hour. We could see them even higher than that, and this is for basically 72 hours straight. So for 3 days, this is the situation. These are the conditions they'll be dealing with, especially across the Sierra Range. We'll see some of that heavy rain, too, work into portions of Southern California. This is on Saturday. It'll be a little soggy for folks there, and we'll still be dealing with the snow, of course, as we get through Saturday and even into early Sunday. Speaking about the snow, I mentioned the blizzard warnings, and that's because we have not just the heavy snow, but we're talking strong winds, 60 to 100 miles per hour in some spots. The visibility will be essentially zero. We'll see difficult travel. The roads will be dangerous. This is going to be something that lowers because of how cold it is as well. We'll see those lower snow levels, too. So parts of the Sierra foothills could see some incredible amounts of snow as well. It's not just the higher elevations like we've seen many times before this season. They, of course, are gearing up for some heavy snow at the higher elevations. You can see Donner Pass along I-80, 7 to 10 feet. We've got 4 to 7 feet possible at 4,700 feet for Blue Canyon. Up and down I-80, though, even as low of an elevation that Colfax is at, you're still going to see up to 8 inches in some spots. So I-80, 50 is going to be difficult to travel as well. This is in and around the Sierra Range. So just prepare for that. That's going to be something you'll deal with well through the weekend. Meanwhile, today, elsewhere, we got plenty of sunshine on the East Coast. Always good to say that. We've got much colder conditions, though, so don't be fooled when you see those blue skies out. We've got chilly conditions that have taken shape as that system yesterday worked offshore. By tomorrow, we see the rain working into parts of the southeast, still dealing with sunshine across the Midwest, and actually temperatures will warm up just a touch across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the northern plains, even the southern plains. Where you're not dealing with rain, temperatures will be quite mild. Out west, of course, it's the Sierra storm that we'll keep track of here through the weekend. We finish out our work week and head into the weekend with that rain working up the East Coast. That system will be moving east as we get through Saturday, and then record highs just as we expected. Just like we dealt with earlier in the week, we're going to see those temperatures back to abnormal levels. 70 degrees for the middle of the country at this time of year as we get into early March. Of course, not normal, but that's what we're going to get. It's going to feel like spring, Joe, and it lasts through Sunday. While the West is dealing with the wintry weather, it is a much different story for the middle of the country.
They've got winter weather out west and shorts and tank tops and everything else.
Yes,
in
'tis
the
the
Midwest.
season.
All right. Thanks, Angie. Appreciate it. More to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the new federal probe into one of AI's leading figures, why the SEC is now looking into whether OpenAI's Sam Altman misled investors. But first, the royal rumors swirling online surrounding the health of Britain's monarchs. Those stories and more next. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin is warning NATO leaders against sending troops to fight in Ukraine, which he said would provoke a nuclear conflict. Those comments are part of Putin's annual address to Parliament. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has been keeping an eye on his comments. Joins us now with more. Keir, what are some of the key takeaways from Putin's speech?
Well, Joe, first of all, let's just bring you a little bit of news. Ksenia Karelina's appeal was held in a Russian court today, and this morning we learned that she lost her appeal, meaning she'll remain in prison now. Joe, you'll remember that she is the ballerina with dual Russian and U.S. citizenship who is accused of treason for donating money to Ukraine. Less than $52, Joe, and the court set another deadline of April the 6th. She is, though, of course, the latest U.S. citizen to be held in Russia, and journalist Evan Gershkovich has been in custody for almost a year, accused of espionage. His newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, says he is innocent and was doing his work as a reporter. Now, to answer your question, Joe, at the same time, a menacing split screen, President Putin giving that keynote speech, highlighting recent advances in Ukraine, though the battlefield there remains largely unchanged, saying he bows at the feet of Russian, quote, heroes, calling for a minute's silence for soldiers he said, quote, are going through the meat grinder of war. His address, Joe, shown on giant screens around Moscow, and including a thinly veiled, as you mentioned, nuclear threat if NATO puts troops on the ground in Ukraine. President Putin saying, we have weapons that can strike targets on their territory. Joe, President Putin is 2 weeks from an election. He said today, we are a pillar of democracy, though, of course, when Russia votes next month, there'll only be one certain winner.
You know, another story that's making headlines recently, the death of opposition leader Alexei Navalny. His funeral is expected now to take place tomorrow. What more can you tell us about that?
That's right, and there are still questions about exactly how that funeral will be held, and of course whether people will be arrested. But it has been certainly a very, very emotional time, of course, for his wife, who gave an emotional appeal again yesterday at the European Parliament, calling on Russians to reject what President Putin stands for, saying Putin must answer for what he has done with my country, Putin must answer for what he has done to a neighboring peaceful country, and Putin must answer for everything he has done to Alexei Navalny. So quite a split screen again there, Joe. Alexei Navalny's wife giving that speech in Europe, while President Putin today giving his clearly resentful speech in Moscow.
All right, a lot of important updates today, Keir. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Turning now to London and the royal family. Princess Kate has been out of the public eye for weeks following her abdominal surgery. Her absence has led to a whirlwind of wild speculation. Here's NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter with more.
That's right. The questions are mounting. We have not seen Kate, the Princess of Wales, since before her planned abdominal surgery in mid-January. The last time we saw her was Christmas, actually. And when Prince William missed an event yesterday, speculation kicked into high gear. This morning, the Prince of Wales is back out in public, while the public still waits for a glimpse of his beloved wife, Kate, the Princess of Wales, who hasn't been seen since Christmas Day. The palace was clear last month she would not pick royal duties back up until after Easter, following their historical practice of not sharing private health information.
So we're seeing increasing rumours. The difference in this case is Kate has disappeared. We haven't seen Kate since actually December last year. And because of that, that's fueled the speculation.
But in the age of social media and fierce attention on the glamorous Wales family, speculation reaching a fever pitch.
Kate Middleton, where is she?
We haven't seen her in the year of 2024.
And even American celebrities.
I gotta meet Kate Middleton for lunch.
Prince William bowing out of a memorial for his godfather at the last minute this week for undisclosed personal matters. A palace source then responding to questions about the Princess of Wales's health, saying only she continues to be doing well.
Whatever information the royal family choose to disclose about the health of the senior royals is really up to them.
But the heir to the throne still making a solo appearance at the glittering BAFTAs last week, an event where Kate usually dazzles on the red carpet. Prince William overheard saying he hasn't seen as many films this year because of everything going on with his wife. And speaking out last month.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also for the kind messages of support.
The royal health questions have reached new heights, given that King Charles is also out of the public eye, receiving cancer treatment, hospitalized at the same time as Kate.
It's wonderful to see you looking so well. Well, it's all done by mirrors.
But the 75-year-old monarch continues some state duties behind the scenes, and in the absence of official answers, the curious and nosy public and social media are filling the void. Now,
as I mentioned in the piece, the palace has been really clear. They would only provide updates on the Princess of Wales's health if there was significant new information. But as of now, we don't know why she went in for that planned abdominal surgery in January. We do not know what kind of cancer Charles is receiving treatment for. What is clear, though, right now is the palace feels no pressure to provide more information. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Molly, thank you so much. More world news now. Ghana's parliament just passed a sweeping anti-LGBTQ+ bill that could imprison people for years. NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us with that and other news from around the world. Claudio, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Well, that's right. On Wednesday, Ghana's parliament approved a very controversial anti-homosexuality bill. Now, the bill is called Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Act, and it not only criminalizes LGBTQ relationships, but it also those who support LGBTQ rights. It was first introduced in the Ghanaian parliament in 2021, and it has since drawn international condemnation. Now, the bill in Ghana still needs to be signed off by the country's president before it becomes law. Well, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, called the development profoundly disturbing and urged the government not to sign it into law. Now let's go to South Korea, where the government threatened junior doctors who have been on strike for the past 10 days that their medical licenses will be suspended unless they end their walkout by the end of today. More than 9,000 of the country's 13,000 trainee or junior doctors have so far resigned or left their hospitals in protest against the government's plan to boost medical school enrollments. Local observers believe many will defy the order and will continue to protest until their demands are met. Well, should they do that, the government is expected to begin formal steps towards punishments on Monday, as tomorrow is a national holiday. And let's end this tour of the world in Dubai, which hosted the first ever jet suit race. Now, pilots zipped along a route with Dubai's famous skyscraper in the background, wearing 1,500 horsepower jet suits that can reach speeds of 80 miles per hour. Just to give you an idea of how powerful that is the horsepower beats most supercars. Now, if they remind you of Iron Man, well, you're right. Richard Browning, the founder of Gravity Industries, the firm that put up the race in Dubai, said the race is the closest anybody's ever got to delivering the world of Marvel superheroes to real life. Back to you, Joe.
It is pretty cool. I can't wait till those replace all the scooters we're seeing in cities right now. It's going to be awesome. All right, Claudio, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's right.
Coming up, a troubling new report on anti-Semitism in America, why the beliefs of younger generations are now trending more controversial than older adults. But first, a call to action in Alabama as IVF patients and providers fight to restore access to the costly treatment. We're going to bring you their stories next on Morning News Now. Welcome back. This morning, Alabama lawmakers are moving forward to restore IVF in the state. Several providers stopped treatments following the state Supreme Court's controversial embryo ruling. Comes as doctors and families gathered at the State House yesterday for a rally to speak out against that ruling. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park joins us now from Montgomery, Alabama with more. Kathy?
Hey, Joe, good morning to you. That is absolutely right. This recent Alabama ruling led to so much confusion and worry. Some families that I'm speaking with say they are going out of state to continue pursuing treatments. And these types of stories appear to be sinking in because some lawmakers believe a new bill could be signed within days.
This morning, Alabama lawmakers feeling the pressure to resolve the deepening fallout from the recent state Supreme Court ruling that upended in vitro fertilization.
This potentially could be a roadmap for other states to restrict access to IVF, or a roadmap on how to protect access to IVF and family building. Please use your voice.
Hundreds of patients, providers, and their supporters fighting to restore IVF in Alabama rallied in front of the State House Wednesday before meeting with legislators. Some sharing heartbreaking stories of putting their dreams of expanding their families on hold.
And how difficult is that waiting period for you right now?
It's extremely difficult. We don't know how long it's going to last. If there's not legislation passed, we are probably looking out of state at this point.
But as far as the actual transfer, that part has been canceled, unfortunately, until all of this can be figured out.
But Republican-sponsored bills advanced through committee hearings Wednesday. Alabama lawmakers signaling they're working quickly to protect IVF access.
The first opportunity that it will be to be able to pass it and sign, because in the bill it says it becomes effective immediately. That could happen as soon as next Wednesday.
The backlash in Alabama becoming a national conversation on reproductive freedoms. Senator Tammy Duckworth, who conceived 2 children through IVF, tried to expand IVF protections at the federal level, but Senate Republicans blocked the bill Wednesday.
Having a child through IVF is a wonderful thing. It is not a crime, and it should not be punished.
And back here in Alabama, the Attorney General's office said that they would not prosecute IVF families or providers. And taking a look at a new Axios Ipsos poll, roughly 2/3 of Americans say they oppose the recent Alabama ruling. And in another key finding, 1 in 3 Americans say they have gone through IVF or know someone who has. Joe?
All right. Kathy, thank you so much. There is a brand new report out this morning from the Anti-Defamation League Center for Anti-Semitism Research, and it shows that Gen Z has surpassed older adults when it comes to anti-Jewish hate. The survey of more than 4,000 adults found that the number of Americans who hold anti-Semitic beliefs has now increased to 24%, and that younger generations now hold more anti-Jewish beliefs than any other age group. Let's talk more about this with the CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt. Thank you for being here. You know, I think we often think younger generations, they're woke. They embrace diversity. Yeah. What is going on here? Why is this happening?
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. I mean, the ADL has been studying anti-Semitic attitudes in America since the 1960s. We've never seen data like this before. Typically, there's sort of an Archie Bunker effect, where the older generations are more intolerant than the younger generations, who are simply more accepting, more exposed to diversity. This is different. So as you pointed out in your intro, we see Gen Z and millennials far more likely to have anti-Semitic views than their older, peers, if you will, than Gen X and boomers. That's a big change, Joe.
Social media, is that a big part of this? What's contributing?
Social media is a super spreader of anti-Semitism and hate generally. And definitely, if you don't get your news from, NBC News Now, but from TikTok, you have a warped view of the world. And we've seen just a deluge of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism on social media platforms in general, TikTok specifically.
Let's talk about one specific thing
Sure.
that just struck me. This study found nearly 30% of Americans find it socially acceptable for a family member to support Hamas.
Yeah.
Obviously, the war in the Middle East, which has been making headlines for months now, is shaping some of what we're seeing. And
No
what you're
question.
Seeing in this study, right?
We've said for a long time that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. If when you demonize people, when you dehumanize them, it changes the conversation for the worse. And we've seen that happen, with extremism on the right, and we're seeing it happen with extremism on the left. But your point about Hamas is really troubling. I mean, this is the generation that we saw a few months ago was spreading the Osama bin Laden letter and thinking that that was some kind of sage counsel from the al-Qaeda mastermind. So in light of that, maybe we shouldn't be surprised that they're seeing Hamas as freedom fighters. But let's be clear what Hamas is. It's a terror organization as designated by the State Department and other governments all over the world. Their charter commits them not to achieving peace for Palestinians, but to literally committing genocide against the Jews. It's what it says in their charter about killing Jews wherever they are in order to liberate the land.
You talked about social media, TikTok. Some of that includes conspiracy theories.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you've seen that are most concerning?
Well, look, it's interesting because they call anti-Semitism the oldest hatred, and it really is a conspiracy theory about how the world works. And in today's world, with our sort of media landscape, conspiracies are the coin of the realm. So we shouldn't be surprised that anti-Semitism is surging in this environment. And I will just say, when we say it's surging, this 24% of Americans with extensive or deep-seated anti-Semitic beliefs, we haven't seen numbers that high in more than 30 years. So this is really trending in the wrong direction. But the conspiracies that people are spouting, that sort of Jews control Wall Street, that Israel controls the U.S. government, it's really very ugly and problematic, no matter what side of the spectrum it comes from.
We're very tight on time here, but if there's one thing we could do to try and reverse what's happening, what would it be?
Number one, leaders need to lead and call out hate whenever it happens without any kind of false equivalence, number one. Number two, everyone's got a role to play. Businesses, universities, government, and we need everybody to step up and create spaces that are no place for hate.
All right, Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Let's get to some money news. The SEC has launched a new probe into one of AI's leading figures. CNBC's Silvana Henao has that and other news that affects your wallet. Silvana, good morning.
Joe, good morning to you. Yes, so the SEC is probing internal communications by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman as part of an ongoing investigation into whether the company's investors were misled. Now, the Wall Street Journal reports the SEC has been seeking internal records from current and former executives and board members at the ChatGPT creator. Now, the probe follows the board's decision to fire Altman in November. The board said Altman was, quote, not consistently candid in his communications with them. Altman returned within a week and is now reportedly in talks to raise billions of dollars for an AI chip venture. It's tax season, and many Americans are choosing to boost savings over paying down debt with their refund. A report from Bankrate finds more than a quarter of people expecting to get money back from the IRS will use it to increase savings, followed by 19% to pay down debt and 11% to pay for daily expenses. Paying off debt was the top response last year. Bankrate says paying down debt is important, especially credit card debt. A recent survey found about half of credit card holders carry debt month to month. And AMC is singing the praises of Taylor Swift and Beyonce. The theater chain says the Eras Tour and Renaissance accounted for more than 10% of the industry's domestic box office in the fourth quarter. AMC inked deals to distribute both films in the U.S. and internationally. However, AMC's stock is under pressure as it faces a delayed slate of movie releases due to the Hollywood strikes last year, which are expected to dent box office returns, Joe.
That's a good point. We'll see the impact of that this year. All right, Silvana,
sure will.
Thank you. We're back with our series, Flipping the Script, featuring people on air, on stage, and behind the scenes who are shining a spotlight on diversity. This morning, we are shining a light on a show that's raising awareness about a rare disease. After all, today is Rare Disease Day. And in honor of that, a new musical is taking center stage tonight. It's called Most Likely Not To. Focuses on spinal muscular atrophy, also known as SMA. It's a rare disease that It can lead to muscle weakness and can impact things like walking, swallowing, and breathing. This morning, we are joined by two stars of the show, Shannon DeVito and Joelle Manuel. Thank you both for being here. How excited are you about doing this show tonight?
Thank you for having us. Yeah, we're both super excited, I think. I know I am, right?
Yeah, no, it's very exciting.
Shannon, tell us what the show is about.
Sure. It's a new musical comedy about traveling with a disability. It's about a high school reunion. There's a little of everything. There's a romance part of it. So you name it, we probably shoved it in here.
It's a little bit of satire, I understand, too.
Yes, satire, yeah.
Which can be an effective tool sometimes in trying to spread messages to people.
Absolutely.
You have been in so many things, I know. To stand out to me is The Other Two and Difficult People, because those are two of my favorite shows.
Oh, thank you.
But to do a musical and to do it about this topic, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, you know, I think anytime you get to represent something that people haven't seen before, it's exciting, and seeing yourself represented is just so important. It makes you feel part of the world, and it's very cool that there was people contributing to it who got to write it as well, which anytime you get to use your own voice and tell your own story, it's very exciting. So it's just a really fun, inclusive atmosphere, and there's a lot of incredible performers that have contributed to it. So it's just really exciting.
Joelle, a lot of people may not know anything about SMA. How could this help raise awareness about that? Why is that so important for you?
For starters, SMA is a lot more common than people think. It's 1 in every 10,000 live births is actually a diagnosis with SMA. So it is a little bit more prevalent than people realize, and raising that awareness, not of just SMA in particular, but also just disability as a whole, I think is very important for people to step outside of their own perspective and be able to see some of the challenges that we have to go through on a daily basis.
How can a musical help relate some of those important lessons, do you think?
Well, I think part of what will make this so effective is that it is relatable. It's situations that we all have to deal with to varying degrees, but one of the themes in the show is about travel. I don't think airport travel is really fun for anyone, so seeing it from a familiar perspective, but also through a lens that people aren't aware of, I think is really important and really fun.
For those who see this, what do you hope is their takeaway?
I think that we really want to inspire people to advocate with us, to again, see these challenges that they may not necessarily be aware of, some of the obstacles that exist in society, and that they're moved to just notice them more and then go out into the real world and advocate with us.
For those, Shannon, I'll ask you, who whether it's SMA or something that there is a challenge in their life, but then they look at you and they say, I want to be an actor, I want to be in television or movies, or I want to be on stage on Broadway. How do you hope your representation can help encourage them? I mean, do you hear from people who say you're an inspiration to them?
I do. I'm very lucky. I've had a really cool career so far, and I think that, you know, if you want it and you want to dream it and you want to do it, just do it. I think there shouldn't be anything holding you back. I mean, I think we're living proof that you can really accomplish anything if you put your mind to it, and I think that, you know, we're so lucky to live in a time that you can just grab a phone and create your own movies, and it's kind of how I started. And so it's really fun and exciting. So just do it.
Talk about the rehearsal process, building up to this moment and figuring out the staging and the singing and all of that. I mean, what's that process been?
Well, it's been going on for a couple months now in terms of conceptualizing it and everything, but everything has kind of flown together over these last few weeks. We have a great cast, a great musical director of the show, and seeing all the hard work that everyone is putting in and how much of a wonderful, great show we're putting together. I can't wait for everyone to see it.
How much have you guys bonded during this process?
Well, we've had like a week of rehearsals, so I think
so quick bonding, quick bond.
It's very tight at this moment. But yeah, it's been, everyone in the cast is so kind, and everyone on the crew and everyone working on it. So it's been a very tight bond very quickly.
Is the singing the hardest part? Is the acting the hardest part? I mean, I can't sing, so for me, that's what's always intimidating. But how about for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think putting it together and memorizing lines in 4 days is probably the hardest part. But I don't know. Everyone is so supportive and kind, so it makes it real easy.
Well, we are excited for both of you. And just a little more information, this musical, Most Likely Not To. It's going to debut tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern. And here's the key. It's also going to be streaming. So there'll be people live who get to see it live, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But on top of seeing it live, there's going to be people all over who can watch it streaming at the website you see there, mostlikelynottto.com. You're expecting like a full house tonight, right?
I think so, yeah.
That's going to be exciting.
It'll
A
be
great
fun.
way to celebrate and to educate all at once. Looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Shannon and Joelle, for joining us.
Thank
That
you
is
so
going to
much.
do it for this hour of Morning News Now. But stay with us. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.